There you go.
Okay,
Yeah.
we got it.
I've been on vacation.
Yeah, you told me.
Adam, you're becoming a regular here.
Yeah.
I didn't put your hair.
Next thing I know, you're gonna be running for office.
They're gonna get a-
So who's being challenged?
In case he wins.
What's that?
Ms. Murray, who's being challenged?
Just in case.
Yeah, being,
Challenged. It looked like there was someone else running for select.
there's Julie and Lisa.
That's good.
Yeah. Two people for select board and two people for, um,
So I started the recording. I just
What is it?
give Ross a quick text.
yeah. some people on the floor.
Okay, bring the chair.
Okay,
All right, ready? It's recording.
it's recording. We're on.
All right, so I'd like to start this meeting of June 12th, board meeting. I'd like to start with the warrants. I'd like to make a motion to approve payroll number 107 for $1,737.79. Do I have a second?
Second,
All in favor? All in favor?
aye,
All opposed? Doesn't matter. I'd like to make a motion that we accept accounts payable number 108 for $101,982.29. Do I have a second?
second,
All in favor?
aye,
And I just want to say the reason that is so high is because a little over 74,000 was for the RSU installment that we have to pay every quarter. And another 25,000 was for the transfer station, also quarterly. So there's almost 100,000 right there just for those two items. I'd like to make a motion that we accept accounts payable number 109 for $152.26. Do I have a second?
second,
All in favor?
aye,
Aye. And that item, and the reason we have four tonight is because this is a replacement. There was a bill that we had and they never got the bill. So we offered a replacement check. And last for the accounts, we have accounts payable number 110 for $150.64. This is also a replacement check that somebody lost. Do I have a second on that one?
second,
All in favor?
aye,
Aye, all right. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the minutes of June 5th, 2023 select board meeting. Do I have a second?
second,
All in favor?
aye,
All right, you have an agenda in front of you, and I just want to switch agendas, especially because we have an entire family here. So instead of taking citizens issues next, what we're going to do is do the Lombardi issue that we have.
Sure.
So we'll do that, and that way, you're welcome, all welcome to stay, but you're also been welcome to go enjoy a nice evening. So Jeff, I'm gonna let you take that topic.
okay, again, first, pardon me, the owl's kind of in the way, so I'm gonna do a little bit of this to look around you. Thank you again for initially bringing forward the violation information, so Gary was aware. And then following through the process, you were with us as we figured out how to do this in our initial learning. So we've gone through the Board of Appeal process, and now Mr. Drum is assisting you with, I guess, a consent agreement discussion. So we've received the consent agreement. We've gone back and looked at the Board of Appeals information. So we've each read through the findings of fact from the Board of Appeals, and I at least listened also to the minutes of the hearing.
Yeah.
So it was good, and I thought, again, the Board of Appeals did a great job in terms of their process. Now, Mr. Drum, you sent us a corrected letter, and that was good, because in the initial one you were saying really that the mistake was more on Gary's part in terms of the setbacks, and this corrects that. What I'd like to suggest, though, is it doesn't quite go all the way with what the findings of fact said.
Okay.
So you're restating kind of the facts, which is good to do in an agreement. but there's one key point, I think that at least I thought was an important point, that wasn't cited, was that there was a plan. So that when the building permit was finally issued, there was a plan attached, revised, I guess, I'm not sure it was revised, but the Board of Appeals said that a drawing of the revised location complying with the 40-foot setback was attached to the building permit. So the location for the footings may have been marked on the ground, but there was also a plan.
Mhm.
So there's enough there. It sounded like very good preparation. But then it was not built per the plan.
Right.
And there's nothing in the findings of fact about who's responsible. So that's, but it does reflect the fact that it was done not per the building permit. And I just want to note also that it seems from this that Gary did what he could to try to help make sure that things worked out. It just didn't happen that way. But I give kind of kudos to Gary for what he did too. So on that, it looks like there's a violation. We agree there's a violation. That the course of action in terms of enforcement of the ordinance would be, the select board could require that the building be moved, which I imagine would be a substantial expense. We could ask for, I guess we could do nothing and accept the fact. Or third, and to be frank, because we've gone through and incurred some costs for the town, we think there should be some compensation. I think there should be some compensation to the town for the cost of this, and also to reflect the fact that the building code and building permit should be respected. And so it was kind of, after all this, a surprise somewhat that it wasn't built, and probably again surprised to the Longobardies that it wasn't built. But from the town standpoint, it wasn't built per the plan and as per the code. But my personal point in going through this is that it seems that we should be talking about some type of compensation to the town for the violation of the ordinance and for the time and effort involved by the town in pursuing. And then on the basis of some agreement then on what that penalty might be, that we could then and get the consent agreement. I presume that you want to go forward, you want to get this resolved so you can proceed with the bank arrangements. So we understand that, but think that to be fair, there should be some compensation to the town for the violation.
Sure. In fact, 38-4452, which would be the operative statute for a violation, would likely include those costs. And so that's totally reasonable. I work for a lot of other towns and I think it's reasonable what you're asking for. Do you happen to know what your costs are in the matter?
No, we can go on that, and I think maybe we can come up more what our costs are.
It's probably less than a couple $1,000, right? I would think.
Probably, I don't know. I don't actually know how much, I don't know if you know how much the Board of Appeals put into this.
Oh, okay. Do they have Jim Katsifikas there for the?
I don't know, actually. I don't think so. Not
He was
the
part
final
of it.
hearing wasn't part of it.
No.
He may have been involved in the review.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Well, so I would love to get this done tonight, if possible, for the Longobardies, just to be able to move forward for their process. You know, perhaps what I could do is conference with them very quickly and then come back and propose some language that might address your concern, which I think is a fair concern.
That could be good. I think since we don't really know, and I apologize for not having done research, what our costs are. And indeed,
Sure.
Gary, unfortunately, the code enforcement officer is taking vacation.
Yeah, sure.
So not quite sure what in prior cases from his history, what might have been an appropriate penalty. So there might be other history that we could apply.
Yeah.
And I don't know, we haven't talked.
Yeah, and one thing I want to point out is on item number 4 in your consent agreement, it wasn't the town, the Board of Selectmen to determine, it was a Board of Appeals who does that work. So I just want to, when you
Okay.
clarify that, or update your consent form, just to note that. Yeah, I know with other issues that we've had where we've really started penalizing people.
Mhm.
We have had to look to different sources to figure out where to, what would seem reasonable.
I mean, so. There are kind of two kinds of penalties. I think the costs are very fair. In this case, it would seem to me that a penalty that would go toward, you know, the idea that this was an intentional violation. Would be inappropriate only because it's a 3 foot or so violation toward the road. It wasn't like they were trying to get closer to the water. In fact, they're further from the water.
Right.
I don't know how it would benefit them to be 3 feet closer to the road. Maybe they'd say.
Pardon me, but I think the findings of fact are referring to 4 to 6 feet. And it's not to the water, it's to the road.
Right,
So being close to the road, it's that setback.
that's what I was saying. It's not toward the water.
Mhm.
Right.
It's toward the road, which doesn't really grant them any sort of benefit. Gary is the one who told them it was 3 feet, as I understand. This initial surveyor had said 4 to 6 feet. And Gary thought that that was not this is where I got confused in my initial letter to you over what the mistake was.
Mhm.
The mistake was, Gary was saying that he thought the surveyor may have made a mistake in how he measured. Rather than Gary and the contractor initially making the mistake that caused the violation. So that was my error, that's why I sent that.
Okay, and I'm sorry too, I think at one point it said 4 to 6, I'm looking at row or point 12 on the findings of fact, and it's 3 to 4 feet.
But
Okay,
in the
yeah.
Board of Appeals, when we met the next day and they came to the property, all of the factual indications that were noted in the Board of Appeals meeting are incorrect. Because when the Board of Appeals members came at 3 o'clock, 24 hours later, and Gary came to measure, we discovered on site that they hadn't measured from the middle of the road. And that they indicated in the Board of Appeals meeting that it was 6 feet and it's not. And the building is actually angled a little bit. So one end of the building is about 3 feet, about 32-ish inches out of code versus the other end of the building, which is, I don't know exactly, but I think you have to consider those measurements because in the Board of Appeals meeting, the first meeting back in November, they're incorrect.
What I'm referencing are the findings of fact that were established and voted on, and that's all we really don't know, and so need to be cognizant of prior stuff. This is the facts as we understand them,
Sure.
and so that's why I keep coming back to references.
So my thought would be, to agree to cover the costs, but, you know, given the innocent nature of the violation, if you really want to do some sort of penalty fee, I would propose like $250 based on the fact that it was a completely innocent mistake that didn't actually benefit the Longobardis in any way. You know, certainly I understand why you want your costs covered. That's totally fair for a town to ask. But this was, I mean, this is the most, you know, minor land use violation I think I've ever seen in 20 years of doing municipal law.
I won't disagree with that point. I don't have the experience, the background. But partially why I mentioned the point about the plan was that we had two pieces of, you know, both marking physically on the property and then having a plan, and it wasn't built to the plan.
Sure.
So that looks like carelessness. I'm not saying Longobardis, again, I think this is could be more like the contractor. The findings of fact didn't establish responsibility for the error, just noted that it was an error as contrary to the plan. So the fact that someone went and built the thing without paying attention to two pieces of information, the plan and the physical location on the property, says to me that there's some real carelessness there.
I don't disagree. My issue, let's say instead we had a situation in which they were 10 feet too close to the water. And the board said, look, we're not agreeing to anything, move the building 10 feet back. And I'd say, hey, guys, you gotta move it 10 feet back. That's what the Board of Selectmen has decided. Okay, they decide they don't want to appeal to the Superior Court on that issue. You know, let's say they incur $100,000 to lift the building, put in a new foundation, move it back. At $100,000, you go back to the contractor and say, okay, pal, we'd like the $100,000 now for this error. The problem is with a violation of, you know, some legal time and a penalty of say $250, it's just gonna be the Longobardies eating the mistake of their contractor with no ability to really go after them because of the transaction cost of actually going and pursuing the contractor is too much to make it a benefit to go after them for the mistake. And that's why I think, you know, when you have an innocent violation like this, it is challenging to deal with, but I would of course advise my clients to cover the town's costs. I think that's completely fair. But I think a penalty which would really essentially blame the Longobardis for the contractors error, I think is undue at this point.
I think in terms of the not really attributing blame, just recognizing that a mistake was made. And it's seeing that the mistake, there was enough done and done well, it seemed partially by the town staff person to try to help make sure there wouldn't be a problem. That it seems like there should be some consequences. And my person is it would be nuts to try to say, gotta move the building. And I also note the fact that no one seemed to come forward amongst the abutters or neighbors to complain about the building. So it's not like saying this is a bad building. I have driven by it, didn't pay much attention, but it looks fine. So I don't think it's a detriment to the community at all. But it just in terms of process and respecting the building code and respecting that building code process, it seems like there should be some consequences for that failure to follow the plan.
I think the consequences is having to hire me, having to pay the town's costs. And that's enough of a penalty is all I'm saying, is that I think that if you look at what it's already cost them and the fact that it would, you know, currently they're trying to purchase a property next door and they're unable to do so. That's obviously caused some stress as well. And I really think it should not be minimized that very rarely does a violator come forward and say, you know, hey, this is a violation. And I think you want to dignify that behavior as well by saying, hey, we had some costs, of course, you know, but asking for, I mean, the reason I mentioned 250 is that's one of the, you know, fine amounts that a judge can order if you go to court and do an 80B action. So, or 80K action, sorry. 80B is an appeal of the time. But, you know, I completely understand what you're saying. I guess maybe we should talk, but I know that they'd like to get it out of the way tonight. Would you mind giving us a brief recess to discuss it?
Well,
Handle something else?
I think from all this discussion, I would recommend that we don't try to finalize tonight.
Yeah, I would really rather wait and have Gary part of this conversation and have a conversation. And I know that he's in Alaska right now. And I know you all want to move forward with that, but he will be back in a week or so. But I just feel like he needs to be part of that process.
And we may need to get Jim Cassavetes to give us a little advice as well. So this way we don't have the history between Gary and hopefully Jim, just see what's appropriate. And again, really appreciate the fact that you've been very above board. I'm speaking to the Longobardis. So thank you very much. And it's kind of like, I feel like you probably feel like you're caught in the middle. This was done, but you know, and you had no intention for it to be done wrong. But you've heard kind of how we feel too.
Well, and I think it's difficult because it means now every resident in Westport Island has to watch everything that a contractor is hired to do. Otherwise, they face a civil fine, which I think is a
That's why we hire a
difficult message. So,
Yeah.
who has many years of experience is to do the job that we hired, and Gary was on site with him staking it out. So, I mean, I don't know how you could prove whether it's one or another's mistake. It was obviously a mistake that was unintentional, but whether you know, in that time when the road was being pulled up and paved, which you can actually see on Facebook, it was all torn up and repaved and actually didn't get finished getting repaved till the following spring. I don't know how you can kind of
Sure.
point that it's definitely the contractor, it's definitely this, because I don't know if anybody can prove that or knows it. There were many facets.
Yeah,
Other
we're
moving
not
parts.
going- Even
including
interest in
Gary
placing
being on site
blame, yeah.
and not coming by later on in the mix to recheck after the
Well,
road was paved and stuff, so.
We don't do that in Maine, unfortunately, the CEOs don't go away a second time, but.
I think you were on the Board of Appeals, so.
Yes, but
yeah.
I'm speaking as a private citizen,
Yep,
even though I do have some knowledge of the situation. And I think, like I pointed out, the appellant that Jeff was correct, no one wants a assess blame. Assessing blame doesn't change the condition that's in violation. So, the topic really needs to be, just the violation, not how it happened. And so you can set aside that dialogue and save yourself worrying about that. I'm saying as a private person, I've seen other people on the island get into this predicament. And again, as a private citizen, I've attended other topics that have to do with it. And how you got there takes no legal precedence in what to do about it.
yeah, and we're clear that there is no intention of asking you to move the building, tear it down or anything else, but it's really a matter of deciding what kind of penalty it would be.
And just one point, Mr. Chairman, you made about impact. We are relying on people when they get out of building code, a building permit, to follow the building permit. Because we're not going back and checking on people. We're not trying to go around and snoop. We're really allowing people to do it. So that's why I appreciate the Lombardi's coming forward and saying there was a violation. But that's why the building permit and following it is important. Because we're really relying that's done.
Okay.
So what we can do is, as soon as Gary comes back, we'll have a conversation with him and then we'll get back to you and set up another time to meet. And if you want to, in the meantime, maybe offer something in your revision, that's something that we could work with or work from, that would also be helpful. Yep,
Donna, I presume, and then when you said that you're not asking him to move the building, you're not implying that the town is going to ameliorate the situation. You're simply going to say it's in violation, right?
exactly.
How they remedy it is their concern and needs to be the parameters of the law,
Mhm.
not anything else.
Right, we know that you have declared that no variance as a Board of Appeals, and we're supporting that.
Thank you.
Mhm. John?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I'm coming at this fairly new, but the one thing that raises a red flag to me is the process. I think it's critically important that you all have the time, the opportunity to marshal whatever resources you need to make a decision. I think this dialogue that you all have had has been great, but piecemeal decision-making in response to questions is never a good way to make a decision about these things. So I encourage you all and support your taking the first flow, talking to everybody involved, and then having a final decision or hearing a decision on it. Assuming that's what we're doing here, is the open decision. It's always very dangerous to have piecemeal decision making in response to this kind of dialogue and decision making until you have all the information from all the facts. You talk to everybody you want to and then make a decision.
Yeah, and I know the Lombardi's have been in this process for a good while, but
Yeah, in September, October.
yeah, and it would be great to have a decision for you today, but we need have input from others. And like I said, if you want to propose something, Peter, and
Sure.
in your consent letter,
And I think it'd be helpful, just make sure what you're proposing in your consent agreement and some of the history reflects the findings of fact.
Sure.
Unless there's some disagreement with the findings of fact. In that case, that's a different issue, but that's what we're relying on, is the statement of the findings of fact. And so if you add beyond that, it's going to be awkward. If you stay consistent with the findings of fact, then we can all agree that those are the facts.
One more thing, would you mind doing that letter for all our applications? The one that you hold in your hand.
From Mr. Drum to the select board.
Please.
You're gonna read the whole thing?
Well, I'd like to hear, and I think other people, John Henderson, I know what, and know others, I'm sure
We gotta read 2 letters. Then.
Yeah, Davies, it's a count, he's kind of laying out the that there's this violation, he wants to propose a resolution.
that.
It's a forwardable communication. He can certainly get a copy. I mean,
Okay, I think several of us could probably ask for a copy, where would we get that?
We can make it available, I guess, April can have a copy and just, she won't be able to give it to you until Wednesday.
Oh, that's fine, all right,
Yeah.
thanks very much for that.
Yeah.
okay. Thanks very much for your time.
thank you, guys. Yeah. Now everybody in the back can move to the front. Okay. Next on the agenda is citizens issues. Do we have any? Demi,
So I wrote in correspondence, initially 2 weeks ago about some concerns. And I really feel that our town would benefit from ethical guidelines. My concerns had to do with defamation of character. I've become aware that in our latest municipal campaign, that our select board chose to go door to door and state that a previous employee of the town was hard to work with. I'm really disappointed in this. I'm really disappointed in this way to go about things, honestly. I voted for you, and as I said in my letter, our vote gave your words power, and that power is now being misused and having effects on someone's personal and professional life. I understand that you're able to have a personal opinion as a select board, and I encourage you to have a personal opinion, but to use your power to produce bias, I do not think is ethical. And I've brought up several ethical issues before, and the overarching answer was to deal with it kind of neighbor, person. But I feel at this point where in terms of confidential information being shared that, was brought on by the town in terms of information, especially information that could cause damages to people's real estate valuation. It is really serious. And I think, ethical guidelines could help us grow as a town. And like Walnut, we can only stand to grow and as a select board, a new select board, and as a town from that.
and I appreciate your comments, and I would say that when we have a new board in July, that we will pursue looking at that. And I appreciate you coming forward. And as I mentioned to you, I also feel like if somebody has a grievance, I would love for them to come to us directly. And I understand that you're speaking for somebody else, but I just, in any case, whether it's anything, whether it's a Wells, whether it's, whatever. So, it just would make it a little bit easier to deal one-on-one.
Would a letter do?
It's not as effective as a one-to-one, and, but a letter could help. Yeah, sure.
Yes, so I'm sorry.
No, I'm just, I'm not sure, I wanted to jump in.
I'm sorry, I didn't see you in the chat.
Okay,
Go ahead.
no, I just, Debbie, are you driving towards getting an ethics policy for the town or?
Similar to what Alma has established, ethical guidelines, so that we, in the way in which we conduct ourselves in meetings.
Yeah.
And as town governance, that we adhere to these guidelines, and they're upholding the values of the town and, conducting ourselves in a way in which we want to be proud of when we look back.
Again, admirable intentions. And so if that's what you're suggesting, because you're mentioning things that we could say are debatable. And I'll say that I think they're debatable in terms of whether there's an ethical problem or not. But the desire to have a process to determine whether there's a violation of ethics, that is, I don't think is debatable. So I can support that. So getting there is some steps we can take.
And I think starting on July 1st, when we have a new board, is a
Yeah.
good place to
I'm really
start.
interested in solutions and not rehashing the past.
Mhm.
Just, as we could tell from last meeting, that really got us nowhere and going in circles, but to go forward and
Mhm.
be better.
No, I appreciate that.
May I add to that, Demi, because your concerns are valid and also perhaps appropriate, would you consider presenting to the new board a code of ethics that should be considered by the board to put into some sort of a town record or some sort of?
Sure thing. I've actually been working with, and in contact with Risha Stone, third selectman of Alma. And I just really went to her as, an acquaintance, and just that I'm also involved in town government. I want to hear what your experience is as another young woman and, a mother. And she was a big proponent of the ethical guidelines, so I'd be happy to work on it, but I'd also like to hear from the rest of the town on what they'd like to see emulated, just so that we can move towards a more unified, way of moving forward. I mean, everything has been so divided. And I'd like us to see more unification in the future.
Yeah, this has been definitely a learning year. It was 30 years where we had one select board member pretty much dealing with things. And so it's been definitely a learning curve, a huge learning curve, I think for all of us. And I think after the election, we'll be able to take a deep breath. I do intend to contact all 4 of the candidates, because I would like a personal conversation with each of them. Just because that I feel is important to do. So I will undertake that. But I think having a conversation with a new board and starting that, right now we're working on all sorts of policies here. So an ethical policy is just one more thing that that we need to add to.
Yeah,
We
and
have
I don't
quite a
think
few.
at all that it should be rushed or, put forth by one person.
No, shoving a policy down somebody's throat is
Yeah.
probably the best way to not have a policy followed. Yeah,
And I think one of the important things, though, a policy also gives a way of reviewing what's the complaints are.
Mhm.
And I think that's important too, because at times things get said in complaints that aren't valid.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so having a process to make it public and visible is, to me, very valuable, hopefully to reduce the instance perhaps of well,
just makes it easier.
He said, she said.
exactly.
I understand that, yeah, and we're, seeing the process as the, select board member, and all that is going current, is under review currently. So.
I
we'll
think
see
they
how
had,
it goes.
they had a finding, I think, in all
Mhm.
So I think that was in
Read
the
the
Wisconsin
most recent one,
newspaper a day
yeah.
or two ago. So it was interesting. I don't know all these, just know what was in the paper.
Yeah.
Sorry, Charlotte, but.
All right. Anything else, Jimmy, that you wanted to add to that?
No, that was it. I just, I told you my concerns in my letter and I just wish to move forward and grow.
Yeah, thank you. Any other citizens issues? John?
Yeah, I just, following up on that, I spearheaded an effort to pass an ethics ordinance in Connecticut, in our town in Connecticut. I've been actively involved with the ethical issues regarding land use, primarily in Colorado for the last 6 years. I've appeared in front of boards like this for probably close to 40 years. And I've been paying close attention to this board, and I have seen nothing, absolutely nothing, that even comes close to anything that would be considered an ethical violation. So I congratulate this board for setting a wonderful example for ethical conduct in municipal deliberative body. So thank you.
Thank you. And here's where a policy would be great, because then we can check off, either not check off or check off and say, yes, we follow those. So, yeah, instead of just different opinions,
Mhm.
which
And
is
it's
what we
in
have.
the future too,
Yep, exactly.
current board members and the future.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, and that's why we're trying to set policies, because it's hard to know how to operate, and policies mean everybody gets the same treatment. So it's been something that we've been trying to work on this year. And like I said, not just ethics is not even on our plate. We have so many other policies to set, but we can certainly add that. Any other citizens issues?
Just wondering how the town is managing going forward with the Baker Road issue.
We actually have an all-day meeting Wednesday, mediation meeting that's required that we attend. You want to tell them about your visit, your
Well,
conversation?
it's just, I don't know that we want to go into much
Yeah,
detail. So, but just that we've been saying that we have a mediation scheduled with the other party and their attorney. And that's going to be Wednesday. And so coming out of that, we'll see what the next steps are. And Julie?
Say Bay Shore.
Baker Road.
Baker Road.
Oh, I thought you said Bay Shore.
I said-
no, he said Baker Road. Yeah, yeah.
I'm sorry, I was just confused with what.
No, yeah. As far as I know, there isn't one. Let's just deal with one road,
That's why I was confused when I heard Jeff
Yeah.
mention Bay.
Baker Road. Yeah. We are, I know everybody says it goes too slow, but we're following the law. And,
Thank you.
and that's all we can do. We're not any happier than any of the abutters or anybody else, but,
I'll just note that it seems to have, some things have been removed from the road, which I guess is a plus.
just this week.
But it's, and we've also been in consultation with the district attorney's office and the sheriff. So again, for the potential of a criminal action being taken against the trespass.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we may know more at our next meeting. So we've talked about the Longobardi. We don't have any committees that we've invited, so we're gonna go right to,
Well, was that all the citizens issues?
yeah, any other citizens issues? Nope. All right, how about roads? Anything exciting happening on the roads?
Yeah, a lot of noise. As Mr. Webb will attest to. I got a call last Thursday about the hammer. It was not gonna be available till after June 19th at some point. Or I could have got it Friday, Monday and Tuesday, that's the road. The ledge in the ditch has been removed, the ledge under the road past Gary's house has been removed. We're moving up the road tomorrow. And
And that's on which road?
East Shore Road.
East Shore Road, okay.
And the hammer will be leaving probably tomorrow night. The ledge broke good, I was happy.
Great.
Sometimes you get ledge that doesn't cooperate. But this has all been pretty good. So it's just up by Cromwell Road, and if there's time, there's a couple spots that will help the snowplow that I may hit at this time. The stuff under the road is a priority, obviously.
So because I'm taking the minutes tonight, so I'll make sure I get this right. You're using the hammer to break ledge on East Shore Road. And in places, and so you've gotten some of it done, you're gonna do some more next couple tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that's all still in prep for the paving.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't want to wait till after, because last meeting I said the 19th. But then they're removing a dam somewhere and it was too wet, so they shipped it back and I grabbed it.
Great, great. I'm sure those on East Shore Road are appreciative of that. Yeah,
Other than decimal level, I've been noted for that my whole life.
all right. While we're on roads, I don't know where this goes, but because it was in the road, I want to bring it up. I got a call the other night, well, a few days ago. I think April had gotten a call about a deer in the road down on Post Office Road. And trying to figure out who in the world would take it off, carry it off someplace, and it wound up that Jeff took care of it. So then 2 days ago, I got a call from somebody who lives down the road from me. It seems like a lot of deer around my road. And the deer had just been hit, and the reason he called was he was wondering if there was a list or something of a place where somebody who needed food, venison, could pick up the deer right away. And he was saying that in a couple of other towns, whatever, they had done that. I thought it was a great idea. If an animal is just freshly hit, it seemed like, I think this deer ran smack into the side of the car. So, and it just died. And so I just wanted to sort of ask in general. I haven't talked to anybody about this other than an individual. Any thoughts does anybody have about Julie?
I think you still have to call the warden and get a tag. You can't just take a deer and pass it on to someone.
I don't think we could get anybody even to pick up the deer the other day. Nobody was willing.
That, or I believe the sheriff's department can, because if it was hit by a car, can issue a tag, but they can't you just can't, because you see a deer lying on the road, just take it.
That would be untagged meat in your freezer.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be comfortable giving anybody that meat.
Right?
Well, it would be having somebody come who clearly knows what they're doing with it. I mean,
Right.
you couldn't offer me a deer.
But by law, you can't take.
Okay, no, that's good to know. No, and of course, the individual drove off, so it wasn't even, it just left the deer, and it's like, what do we do with the deer in the road? So it seems to be just this past couple weeks, it's like two issues, and not knowing quite how to handle them. And I know that April called several different agencies trying to figure out who might come and pick it up. And nobody seemed to be willing, so.
Yeah, the sheriff will at least give whoever, if a resident even wants it, or if someone here wants to just collect them, but the sheriff has
to get a tag, yeah. Okay, Demi,
Yeah, there was another deer in front of our property, technically on forest property. Really in that standing water right there next to the old town hall.
mhm,
I noticed it on the way to plant sale,
mm,
that had been hit. But to her point, yes, that is a common practice where we came from on Martha's Vineyard, people would come collect deer after the sheriff was involved.
yeah, I just know there, I don't like to see anybody going hungry, and, that's, and, I have a brother that uses venison all year long, so I know it's usable meat, and especially if it's a brand new killing.
nothing better than backstraps.
What's that?
I said nothing better than backstraps.
Yeah, what do they call it? Roadkill, yeah, down south, yeah. Any thoughts on that other than calling the sheriff?
No, I think the problem is with the carcasses that have sat
Yes.
and need to be removed, they're not meat.
Right, right.
And that's, we don't have an animal control officer who carries it away. The sheriff's department does not carry them away. So it's either you take it off your property or someone comes by and picks it up.
The
And-
wolves
and-
get it, because that's,
Well, but you don't really want that, right?
no,
You know, so this is, so it's a problem and it can resolve this last one. Just by coming by and grabbing it and taking it away, but we don't really have a good process. And Becky, I'm sorry if I cut you off.
yeah, this individual told me that he was just gonna take it into the woods. Well, he lives pretty close to me and I've already seen in my woods quite a few bones and stuff and fur just for a long, long stretch. So I assume it was a deer that was nicely chewed on, but that doesn't feel comfortable either because, you know, I know there are coyotes around.
Well,
And
we need to just keep it away from the water because
Mhm.
that will affect the quality of the water
Yep.
and actually it will get into the flats as
Mhm.
well.
Mhm.
So we want to make sure that it stays away because then it will poison the flats and we could have Department of Marine come in.
so there's a challenge when you don't have any official who comes and picks it up. It's like if it's left to the landowner, then how do you monitor? So anyway, I was just wondering if anybody had the right answer. But I definitely calling the sheriff to get a tag is important.
April can call me.
Okay,
Call,
I was hoping for that answer.
yeah, I've done it before, you know, I just, one thing to pick them up, then like the big discussion, what do you do with it?
Yep.
You know, I can't just relocate it to the side of the road, you know, where there's no houses, that just doesn't seem right either.
I've got enough property that I can put them out in my woodlot away from everything except coyotes. So I'm feeding the coyotes.
Yeah.
I know some.
Feed them down your way.
Some carcasses used to get thrown over the bridge years ago. I don't think that's such a good policy either.
Yeah, I remember years ago when I first moved here, I think it was in Woolwich where it was the animal control officer who was just throwing them all the dogs and stuff on the side of the road.
Yeah.
And in some field or something, and then somebody eventually found them and it was quite an issue, but you know, we have a ton of deer on this island. They're getting hit almost daily and I just feel like we need here we go with the policy or process again. How do we do this? I will let April know that to call you and let you figure out what to do with it.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Becky, you had your hand up before you left.
My question is just, what was done in the past, but I guess you were guessing it shouldn't.
Yeah, it sounds like there,
That's not okay.
nothing, no good answer.
My question was, and I talked to you about it before, Jeff, when there was a deer that we found in the back of the fire truck box in. That was in Swamp Creek and kind of decaying and waiting in there about the bacteria, and I knew, you know. Again, like in our past community, when that happened, dogs would be swimming, people would be swimming, could potentially ingest that bacteria and it's
Mhm.
dangerous. Now it's happening again in front of my house and, you know, not that my little one is running across the main road, but I do know that we have campers coming on who live and camp on that property right there adjacent to the water. So, yeah, I understand where we could, yeah, but should we have a process, especially when it's touching a body of water? You think it's especially a public safety concern at that point?
Yeah, I think,
Maybe a list of volunteers to
yeah,
have a tractor or in a certain location, or I'm not sure, but.
Gary, you used to be a code enforcement officer, or I forget what your title is.
Animal control.
Yeah, so what did,
Nothing, we couldn't touch them. And they call the sheriff and game warden,
okay.
because they're not ours to mess with.
Mhm.
Mhm. And you have no clue what they did with them?
Yeah. One of them used to throw them down long cold.
Right into the water. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Where did go? I don't know if they went far enough.
Yeah.
But there's a whole bunch of birds that live there that eat them up pretty quick. And
Yeah.
coyotes,
I remember somebody telling me just the other day they saw turkey vultures, so I guess that would be a way to bring the turkey vultures on.
Yes,
So it's funny, we've been here for 200 years plus, and we don't really have but I think carcasses have been taken away mostly, not always. I think there's been one up the island that was all on Main Road up to one side. Most of the people, I think, if it's their property, they take care of it. Trouble with the folks there across from you is they're not around. So I took care of it. Because I think the thing is, we don't want something like that right there adjacent to the roadway.
Staying in water.
I think
I think I actually was less concerned about the water because I don't think it's not draining into a waterway. From that particular spot. It's marshy, but I don't think it's draining. I would be going back to what you found at the Squire Tar Box. If it was this time of year, I would be concerned. But again, then it's accessible as well.
Yeah, I remember Squam Creek was inaccessible for clamming for a good long while because of some kind of bacteria or something, and they thought it was maybe a dead critter. But it can ruin not just the waterways, but also, you know, the things that live there in the water.
I think
Julie?
if it's car versus deer, the sheriff usually shows up and also someone from the fire department shows up. So it's easy enough if the person who gets the deer doesn't want it. It's easy enough to put out a post saying there's one available because the sheriff will have tagged it by that point. So
So that's an instance where the process can work and you can get good meat out of it. The trouble is, like this case, there's a dead deer, no one's around, we don't know who hit it.
exactly, that's gonna have to be another thought process in itself. But at least with the ones that Carver is here, we can have a plan put into action and talk about it.
Yeah, I wonder if we can put something on Facebook or something that says, if you're interested in deer meat, we can have a list of names.
well, I think it has to go through the club board.
Right, we still have to get the tagging, but at least then we,
If you just find a dead deer on the side of the road, you ain't.
well, that has, yeah, I'm thinking of completely fresh, just killed, that you know hasn't been sitting there.
I'm just talking about the ones you see on the side of the road.
Right.
It's really illegal.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Somebody tells me to. Of course, we do it anyway. I've done it
Right.
100 times.
Yeah.
But still, it's not kosher.
No, we're not using the meat.
Well, no, you're messing with an animal you shouldn't be.
Mhm.
It's a game warden's territory and sure,
The game warden has declined to take action with regard to dead deer.
Yeah.
yeah.
We don't have a designated game warden at this point, do we?
I believe we do. I believe Doug, the one who's the former game warden is back. He's sort of unretired.
Okay. All right,
Uh,
because as when I called on the Squam Creek one, at that point, we didn't have it designated. Okay.
But he was back last month anyway. Nice guy.
So anyway, we'll continue to work on
I
that.
think he's a nice guy.
But I just happened to think about it with the road issue, and that seemed to be a road issue. All right, anything else on roads? Okay, go,
Fact is here, it's another road issue.
okay.
We call it road issue. Oh, you know, seriously, they call me.
Okay. Yep, I will let April know because I think they mostly go to her, if there's a call. And when they come to me, I'll go to her. Correspondence, the only thing I have for correspondence, I want to just share that what we are doing this year is we're trying to celebrate, congratulate we have 12 graduates from various schools. We're not allowed to see who those people are. But we talked to Richard and he has come up with a plan. So we had all of our staff, the select board, and Richard and Mary will sign all the cards, and then they will go to the superintendent's office and he will send them out, but we wanted to just make sure that we congratulated all of the select board, all of the graduates. So we have 12 graduates, so I think it's pretty
Is that high
exciting.
school graduates?
Seven high school.
7 high school and 5 eighth grade.
And also the WCA's scholarship.
Yes, there is a note
included.
in there about the WCA. If probably the eighth graders didn't need it, but since we can't differentiate where it's going, those are also in there. So if somebody wants to consider starting college or training or anything else, we do offer up to $500 stipends. So that was included in there. So I just wanted to announce that. I don't have any, I have one, do you have more correspondence?
Yeah, well, actually, just to take advantage of Bailey being here. Do you want to repeat what you heard from the septic in town hall?
So we have roots growing into the main port entrance of it, and he dug out the roots, and so we're all just supposed to kind of monitor it to see if any excess water comes back up. If we start to see more excess water, then that just means he's gonna have to get his camera on a snake.
Mhm, mhm.
I don't know if it's a real snake, but
No, it's a long thing that goes in and
yeah.
maybe a
What?
boa constrictor or something.
When you said that, I was trying to think, but there's no trees that close to that,
There's a crab apple or the apple tree that's off
on the side of the building.
to the side of the building, and I mean, I don't know if that's.
Jeff, I have in my backyard and I have no trees anywhere near, and I have roots constantly from the
Well,
oak trees. And so you have all the
Okay.
trees back there.
Anything that's sticking up above the ground is below the ground.
Exactly,
And
yeah, there are a ton of trees
Bill
down there.
Hopkins massacred that for years with a Greenberg lawnmower. So it looks smaller than it really is, probably below ground.
Okay, like an iceberg, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Forget it.
Yep.
On the southern side of,
With
behind the basketball courts.
so there could have been something under the basketball court at one point.
Well, that's the leach
There's
field.
active root.
The,
Oh, it's active root.
yeah, the tank is behind the bathrooms.
Yeah.
So I think that's good to know, and it was
Yeah.
a cheaper fix than I was afraid of. We got the bill, Bailey, so it's $350.
Cool. All
All right,
right,
we'll pay that next
And
week.
I think, well, actually, if we pay that this year, it won't hit your estimate for next year.
yeah, that would be nice.
All right, so the only administrative item I have is just, I forgot that the 19th is actually Juneteenth. And it is a federal holiday, and so we do need to meet because we're getting ready for the town meeting, so. I'd like to propose, and we'll post it, that we schedule our normal Monday night meeting for Tuesday night. So if any of you are interested in joining us, we're gonna make it the 20th at 7 o'clock. Okay, so, but the 19th is a federal holiday, for those of you who may not know that. I think last year was the first time that it was celebrated. And anything else on admin items?
Yeah, we have the contract for the assessor that we need to
Oh, yeah,
sign.
that was under legal matters, and so we're moving on to that.
Okay,
Yes. All right, so legal matters. You want to go and talk about the contract?
this is, again, we have a contract for, a letter of agreement, certified main assessor from Evan Gutkowski. And I move that we accept his recommended contract.
I second it.
The facts are going to be that have an extensive amount of work we're expecting to get his help on. We have the senior tax abatement program that's still, as far as I know, in effect, though the legislature was trying to see how to modify that. So there's that to deal with and how to reflect that in the tax bills that go out in August. So we want him for that help as well as with the regular assessing work. So the contract is for $7,500 for the year, for the assessing year.
It's a 1-year contract.
Yeah,
Yes, yeah,
so I move we accept.
and I second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so we will sign this quickly, and then we need to let him know that there are no longer selectmen. have to train people. You know, after tomorrow, or after July 1st, we're gonna have 2/3 of the board is gonna be women, and we darn well better figure out how to say select board instead of select.
I know.
So,
You can stand your ground though.
all right, any other business? No, then I make a motion that we adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
I remember a day.
7:59, pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay, and nobody came in here.
Maybe that recommended the ethical, what was it?
Debbie Martinez.
How about writing her name?
Becky,
What you got?
Debbie, okay? Debbie's. Debbie's okay. She's just trying to get that.
She.
Yeah.
Like, send me more.
Is it Martinez, is it MARTINZ? Okay, no gotchas there. That's fine.
And she requested a policy, but ethical.
That would start to look at a policy. We start to look at a policy for.
Town ethics.
Town ethics.
Is that for the select board or for the?
I think, well,
She mentioned other things, so for everybody.
I would think for us. No.
Yes, yes.
Not just the selectmen.
Right. One of the things she mentioned was definitely not the select board. It was,
Elected.
no, that's not-
no, just all for the town. And that
Yeah.
includes,
all officials for the.
yeah, that includes, committee chairs and that kind of thing, because I know one of the things she, yeah. Okay, so I don't need this.
Is it? We are, I
It's just.
MI, MER.
I can't even.
That's the trouble reading with my handwriting.
M as in Mary. This is, you know, and his name is MAR, M as in Mary, A T I. T as in Tom, I,
And it's not that. much
And it's an
cheaper.
easy.
Sometimes it is.
Okay, I will do these will be not very full minutes. I
Z,
think I can reflect.
You do what's good.
So I'll need to look at it and see if I. Miss anything. And some of this one is moving.
it's my.
Yes. I don't want to get caught in a circle.
Mix this stuff up.
not good, but gaining, was pretty, as I said, we all.
I need to. And that's.
Totally,
Part of
come back, and he's doing much better. Some-
To-
but not-